Welcome back to the final segment of this week's show. In this segment, Gwen Preston and Greg McCoach will join me to talk about their most successful picks in 2019 and their top 2 investment ideas as we start 2020. First, we turn to Gwen Preston, who is known as the Resource Maven. For sure, she is one of the biggest hits at the Metals Investor Forum events. She publishes the Resource Maven, which you can avail yourself to by going to resourcemaven.ca. Welcome, Gwen, and thanks for joining me again.
Thank you so much for having me always, Jay.
Well, it's always good to have you because you always have a lot of insights that are very interesting and I think profitable in many cases, and certainly when we're in a bull market that helps. But I know this has been a very exciting year. It's been a good year for those of us in this sector. What are a couple of your top picks? Well, tell us what your top pick is for 2019. What did you make the most money on?
There are two stocks that are almost tied for that. They're both triples, and they're quite different. Although so one of them is High Gold. High Gold was the spin out from Constantine Metals. Constantine is developing a base metal project in Alaska. It's doing a great job of that, but base metals are a slog for small companies these days. Constantine always had some high-grade gold assets in Ontario that it wasn't doing anything with. And then through its long-time connections in Alaska, it got a hold of a project that had been forgotten, basically, through a native corporation called Johnson's Tract. And they got that project, and they put the gold assets in Ontario and that high-grade Alaska asset into a new vehicle that they spun out of Constantine. And so you could become part of a shareholder of High Gold, either by being one of Constantine or by buying in the financing, or then, of course, subsequently in the market. And it has since tripled. The market really is excited about a couple things. They're excited about the team, the share structure, the really strong shareholder registry. I give Darwin Green there a lot of credit for working hard to make sure that he had really strong support on board. But really, people are excited about this Johnson Tract project, which is high-grade gold with base metals. It's a bit of an unknown entity in terms of what it is geologically. It's probably a VMS with an overprint, or maybe it's like SK Creek. We're not sure. All that matters is they're reporting things like tens of meters of 10 grams gold with a bunch of copper and zinc in there. And so, yeah, right? And so with just a short program this summer, because that's all they could fit in once they got listed, they are looking to prove up and then, put out a modern resource on the historic numbers and move forward from there. And then they'll drill high-grade gold assets in Ontario in the winter. So High Gold has been a fantastic pick. I was both a shareholder of Constantine and a participant in the financing, so I made sure I got lots of exposure to that one. The other one that's a tie is Discovery Harbor, which is a company that's been around for a while, but it was completely dormant, basically, through most of the bear market and even into the start of the bull market. And then they decided to get going again. They looked ahead, saw a promising gold market, and decided to sort of reawaken. And they have a really interesting-looking exploration asset in Nevada. And that's a cool story because it's a matter of, it proves that it pays attention to watch for companies that are reawakening. Because when a company is trading at just a shell valuation, but actually has an asset, when they decide at the beginning of a new market to reawaken, you can get a double or triple just by being aware that that's happening. So they went from 6 cents, today they're trading at 17 cents. So that's a really nice move. And there was hardly any risk in it because it was literally just they stood up, put their hand up and said, we're awake again, we have an asset, we have people, and the market was like, oh, okay, we should give you credit for that. So two very different stories, but both did very well. Well,
I'm sure you're going to have some more really wonderful stories this year too, assuming the bull market continues. So I'd like to ask you before we get to your top picks for 2020, what is your crystal ball telling you about 2020? What markets do you want to be in? Which ones do you think you might want to avoid?
Yes, that good old crystal ball. Certainly, I'm bullish on precious metals. And I say precious metals, I'm certainly bullish on gold. I think the fundamentals for gold are about as strong as they can be. There are headwinds. The stock market is still strong, but there's a lot of uncertainty. There's very low to negative real interest rates. There's a lot of negative yielding debt. There's a lot of questions about the stock market, high valuations there. There's a lot of political uncertainty that's in the air. There's all kinds of reasons. And then there's just timing in the gold cycle. There's all kinds of reasons why gold should do well in 2020. So I'm bullish on gold. That means silver as well. Usually follows along a little bit after the fact. And then I think the platinum group metals are worth having some exposure to. I mean, palladium has gone wild in the last few months. It's trading at like $1,900, which is a pretty crazy number. Will it continue up there? It's tough to know. But what I think is really interesting is that even if it steps back some of these recent gains and settles into a new price that's, call it, I don't know, $1,500, that makes a whole bunch of palladium assets that were not economic ever before economic, and that's because we've entered a new paradigm in palladium demand. So I think there's a lot of opportunity on the stock side in palladium, in platinum group metals in general, as the market recalibrates to this new paradigm. The fact that palladium prices are so high, and they're going to stay not at these levels, but they're going to stay high for a while. So I think there's a lot of equity opportunity in the PGM sector. And then as a final, I would say there's no harm positioning in uranium. I'm not going to say that I know when uranium's going to go, but when uranium goes, it goes ridiculously fast, and you miss it if you're not positioned ahead of time. It will go sometime in the next 1-2 years. So there's no harm positioning now because I don't think there's a lot of downside left. The sector's been kicked to the dirt for
for sure.
7 years already. So I don't think there's any harm positioning in uranium, just in case it does happen in 2020.
Right. So these are some ideas that people who subscribe to your letter will be privy to. So it's resourcemaven.com. So, okay, going to 2020, what are your top 2 picks? And we have about 4 minutes.
4 minutes to do 2 picks. Okay, I'm going to do 2 different kinds. So we've seen a lot of merger and acquisition activity in the gold space in the last little while, and so I think it's important to pay attention that that's happening. Right now we're seeing mergers of equals, we're seeing, producers getting together. The next stage in that will be producers buying development projects. And so from that angle, I think Pure Gold is a very good opportunity. They are building a gold mine right now. It's a high-grade gold mine in Ontario. It will be in production by this time next year. There's a lot of upside potential. So I think Pure Gold really fits the M&A story in this space very well. So I think that's a great pick. That's PGM. And then just on the other side of things, I love exploration and I love discovery. So one stock, well, I'm gonna name 2. Sorry, okay. 2 stocks that I'm really excited for on the exploration front are GFG Resources, which is currently drilling an interesting project called the Penn Project in Ontario. That's a pre-discovery project, but I think they have a lot of smoke there. There may well be a fire. And then Precipitate Gold, which is about to drill its new acquisition, in the Dominican Republic. And again, there's a lot of smoke there. There's a lot of evidence, and I'm really excited, to see what that drill program can turn up. So that's GFG and PRG. Are the 2 exploration stocks that I'm keen to watch. Okay,
well, PRG would be, I guess, probably the lowest market cap of the 2, right? So
it's pretty tiny, yeah.
Yeah, it's very tiny, and I'm very well familiar with that as well. GFG was also a pick of Robert Moriarty as well. So that also they have they have that large scale target out west there. I guess
absolutely. So they're partnered, drilling a deep sulfide target in Nevada, and that's also a really interesting opportunity as well. So, a couple irons in the fire there. Yeah.
Well, certainly you're going to have a lot of interesting things to share with your subscribers this year. So, thanks for sharing a couple of your ideas with us today. They're very much appreciated, Gwen. Thank you so much for being with us again.
Thanks for the opportunity, and Merry Christmas to everyone.
Merry Christmas as well to you and yours. Next, we turn to Greg McCoach. Now, this is the first time Greg has been on the show. He is an ardent student of history and entrepreneur who has successfully started and run multiple businesses over the past 37 years. During the last 18 of those years, he has written his widely followed newsletter, The Mining Speculator, in search of exponential gains within the junior mining sector. Greg is also founder and CEO of Amerigold.com. It's a bullion dealer in its 19th year. And you can access Greg's newsletter by going to discoverymaven.com. goldnexus.com. Thank you for joining me today, Greg.
Hey, Jay, always a pleasure to sit down and talk with you.
It's really good, and I'm glad that you've just recently joined the Metals Investor Forum. I guess maybe for a year or so now you've been with them, and it's really nice to have you to be part of that very, very good show. I think it's a very good event that we are going to have one coming up on January 17th and 18th, I believe it is, and I know you have a number of companies going there, but today I'd like to ask you, Greg, what was your best pick in 2019? What worked best for you, I guess from a stock performance perspective?
Well, we were involved with the Great Bear Resources situation right from the early days.
Yes.
30 to 40 cents is where I was recommending that, and that's been basically such a big win and much appreciated after a tough bear market for us for 7 years in the newsletter business.
Mm-hmm.
So that really got me re-energized, got my subscribers re-energized, and I'm very grateful for that, and I'm still telling people to hang in there with
mm-hmm.
it because, even though we've taken profits, as you should in these things, I see a buyout here that's going to be phenomenal at some point. And with all the drilling they're doing next year, I just think the majors can't ignore this, being in the Red Lake camp with this many new discovery zones along that trend. It's very exciting still.
Mm-hmm.
And aside from that, Jay, I've been involved with VR Resources. That's looking very good. I'm very excited. It's another treasure hunt and exploration story with the right guys doing the right things for the right reasons. I really like the potential. They're drilling 3 different projects that are all going to have assays here in the next 3-4 months. So these guys go after elephant-sized targets in Nevada, in Ontario, Canada, and it's gold, copper, it's polymetallic type situations. The big potential if the drill happens to hit one of these stellar holes we're hoping for.
Mm-hmm.
I like that one. It's done well for us. It's tripled in the last 3-4 months, but that's one I'm watching very closely. That's high on my list. Ely Gold, of course, is
yes.
I've followed it for a long time. It's at 43 cents. You could have bought this for 10 cents just, less than a year ago.
Yeah.
And that's moving because of the model. It's not so much a treasure hunt, but it's that royalty model that I think is with all the shareholder dilution these days in the exploration plays. I love companies like EMX Royalty or an Ely Gold Royalty.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Well, those are 3 ideas. That's wonderful. What are you seeing as we move into 2020? What markets do you think are going to do very well? Which ones might you be a little bit leery about?
Well, we're in an election year in the States, so I think the powers that, as I call them, the powers that shouldn't be in this world, they're going to push the pedal to the metal to keep this illusion of prosperity bubble markets going.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that is going to change in any significant way, but you and I have been following the great debasement, as we like to call
Yep.
it. You and I are very much aligned in our thinking.
Yes.
In that. And just because it hasn't happened yet, I think we're really in the latter stages of this empire that the United States has had. This is end of empire type of talk. Mm-hmm. But I think we're really pushing up against the limits of what can happen with these bubble markets. So whether it happens in an election year or not, I don't know. But I'm maintaining that gold in particular, precious metals markets, the smart money people, they don't care what's going on in the bubble markets. They know that's all full of hot air. Mm-hmm. And we'll see its demise at some point. But they're buying gold quietly. They are coming in, they're buying gold, and they don't care what happens. They're smart, and I see this buying is going to become more intense as we get into 2020. And I think what you're going to see is the gold price is going to start to rise to this 1650, towards that 1650 level that
mm-hmm.
that I've been talking about to my people. It won't break out to a new high until we see some kind of major event like a 2008, an AIG collapse, a Bear Stearns, a Lehman Brothers type situation again. But we know that's looming behind the scenes. Whether it's just too difficult to pick the timing on
sure.
that. But I see gold steadily just creeping higher. It's not going to get a lot of attention at first, but for the mining stocks, this is going to be a really good bull market because, number one, the majors are making a ton of money at these prices. Even at $14.78 right now. They're making a lot of money. And they're desperate to replenish reserves, so they need to start putting some of their profits into these juniors that are the people who make the discoveries. So I think that's going to help the juniors a lot more than it has in recent years. I think that'll start to really push the better companies and their agendas, and then the majors need to buy out the new discoveries like a Great Bear. That's very likely to happen in my view.
All right. Do you have any other Great Bears on your horizon as we go into 2020? What do you like? What would be your top pick, or what would be your top pick for 2020?
I really like VR Resources. It's VRR, Victor Ralph on the Canadian side, VRRCF on the U.S. side. Watch that one because it's the right people. They have the money, and they're really going after some big elephant targets. And just one good hole on one of these targets could really change the whole dynamic quite quickly in a good way. I like all these royalty plays, the Metalla royalty, the EMX royalty, Ely Gold royalty. I think that's a safe place. I always tell my subscribers I have these in my retirement account, and I don't have very many junior mining stocks in my retirement account other than these royalty plays. On the treasure hunt, I still like Chicana Copper down in Peru. They went through a little land dispute on part of their property that knocked their stock price back from 46 cents to 15 cents. Now it looks like they're going to get past that. The stock's starting to creep back up to 21, 22 cents. I see that as being one to pay attention. They're drilling these copper gold breccias in an area that's already had success. The drilling has already been very successful. I like the potential on that one. And, there's a lot of stuff happening up in the Golden Triangle that's exciting as well. No
doubt about it. There's lots to look at. And again, it's discoverynexus.com, discoverynexus.com. For Greg McCoach's work, and go there and learn more about what Greg does. He's really a great guy. I've known him now for a number of years, and really delighted that he's with the Metals Investor Forum these days. Thanks so much, Greg, for being with us, and we'll look to do it again sometime in the not-too-distant future. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you and your family, and we'll catch up with you.
Merry Christmas to you and Teresa.
And we'll catch up with you in Vancouver on January 17th and 18th, I believe it is.